Have you ever broken up with a man because of his penis? If so, why? Story 1. The last guy I dated had a dick like a fucking traffic cone. It started off a bit smaller than average at the top and would eventually widen out to be as thick as a Coke can, it seemed. It was maybe 5.5 inch long, but went from like 4.5 girth head to like 7.5 girth base. So anyway, one day he decided to just thrust his whole shit into me without getting me truly prepared. I bled. It was awful. Never again. Story 2. It was for more reasons than just his penis, but I deduced later that it had to be his penis that caused me to have multiple issues with my vagina. I never had a UTI before we met, never had an abnormal pap, and didn't have a lot of bladder infections. The 2 years we dated I had more bladder infections and UTIs than most people have in their lifetime. I had 2 abnormal paps and had to get a cervical biopsy, thankfully it came back fine. I shit you not, since we broke up I have never had an issue again. I have no idea what the cause was, but I chalk it up to my body telling me to get that dick away from it. Story 3. Once dated a guy that had a mega penis. No matter what we did, he hurt me. Neither of us found the situation enjoying, so we decided to part ways. Story 4. Yes. It was too big and he only knew one speed, jackhammer. Other than that, he would have been perfect. I tried talking to him about it, but he would always have to end it drilling me despite my cries of pain. Story 5. Yeah, I had a BF whose only move was the jackhammer. He rarely had an orgasm through oral sex. Just would go on and on, I'd get tired. Then we'd just have sex. Thankfully he went down on me beforehand. 'Cause I could never reach orgasm with the jackhammering. He was still having sex like he was 18. Sometimes we'd do doggy, more jackhammering. Missionary? The jackhammer. He'd get bored with me on top and start moving under me. Sex was so boring I lost interest in it. Used to dread weekend mornings when he'd want to jackhammer all morning. I used to try to go to bed early to get away from him and he'd follow me for more jackhammer. He had a nice looking penis, just didn't know how to actually use it. Story 6. Yes, I have. Because he never fucking washed it. It took me a few dates to catch on, but after the second time I went to go down on him and everything was all still there from the day before, I decided I was out. Story 7. My wife had an ex where she used to have to play the sexy shower game, but it was really just the wash your dick game. I'd like to give a shout out to that guy for setting the bar so low that all I have to do is wash it. Story 8. My sister once broke up with a guy she'd been dating and sleeping with for about a month. Apparently, she'd never really looked at his penis, sex in dark rooms. She knew he had a tattoo on his penis, but didn't know what it said until she finally went down on him. He had the words, bitch binky, tattooed on the side of his dick. No, I don't know the backstory. And with that knowledge, she was done. Story 9. Don't know if this counts, but a guy asked me out and like 10 to 15 minutes after I said yes he spammed me 10 pics of his dick, so I never talked to him again and he told my mom I was ignoring him. Story 10. I have an unusual story for this. Over 20 years ago I was set up with a Guatemalan guy some friends of mine knew. We went out and I figured I would never hear from him again. He was way out of my league in the looks department. To my surprise he asked me out again. After a few dates we wound up going back to his place. We were making out and he said he needed to tell me something before we went any further. He told me that several years ago he had been in an accident and the tip of his penis was cut off. It was still functional, but he wanted to make sure I was okay with that before we went any farther. I told him I didn't mind. It was just a small piece of the tip that was missing, but instead of being rounded the top of his penis was kind of jagged. Not really sure how to best describe it. Surprisingly, this actually made the sex much more pleasurable. As we continued dating I learned he was in the United States to have plastic surgery to fix his penis. It took 6 weeks to heal and once it was healed it looked completely normal. And sadly, sex was just normal too. Not nearly as good as before. That along with the fact that after the surgery he kind of became an asshole led me to break up with him. Story 11. My sister broke up with a dude because his junk was too big. I overheard a conversation when she was telling my mother why she is not seeing him anymore. I laughed when I heard my dad in the background say Jesus Christ. Story 12. Far too many of these threads have someone smelling bad then refusing to remedy the issue. Like bro, you can't be asked to simply clean your fucking dick. That's so foul. I can understand why so many people have horrid breath, too, though, if basic hygiene is such a chore to so many people out there lol. Yuck. Story 13. He said that he had showered the hour prior. He did in fact, his hair was still damp, and somehow he still smelled of borderline infection and had cheese. He was also expecting to get some, hence the shower. Story 14. One of the main reasons I left my ex-husband is because his penis only lasted for 2 minutes and I never climaxed. The other reason was he put his penis in his manager. Story 15. Yes. One time it smelled really bad and he insisted on me giving him head. I didn't do it, but the fucking audacity. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was other stuff leading up to the breakup though. Story 16. I had a co-worker that had trouble one night. We was pretty wasted at a bar when he came back from the bathroom with a girl and she looked mortified, so we started harassing him. All of a sudden he whips out a horse cock and was like, "This is why I can't get laid." Story 17. Not exactly the same problem, but my friend was a virgin when she got married. They tried but could not consummate on their honeymoon and were very worried and embarrassed. She finally got up the nerve to ask me about my first time, how much it hurt and how long it hurt. He could not get it in. He was ramming into the hymen of steel. They tried a lot but he was unable to get in. We finally talked her into going to the DR to open her up surgically and they proceeded to have success. Ho. Story 18. Yes, because, despite him claiming to shower twice a day and roll the skin back and clean myself properly, I was getting really bad UTIs and other infections. Dude refused to use condoms because they'd removed the sensation, so it was bacteria city for me. My OBGYN finally got a call from my GP. They both called me in for an appointment and explained what my most recent tests showed: no STI/STD, thank God, but the bacteria present that caused my UTI was a mixture of bacteria found in urine, semen/sperm, poop, sebum, and sweat. They had to explain that the colony that I had, which was growing resistant to antibiotics, came from my partner. He felt the need to clear his name, and has bacterial tests which showed the same bacteria and in larger quantities. But to wrap things up, he still denied it was him, and I broke up with him. Went in stronger antibiotics, the bacteria left, and since then, no matter how much a guy protests, I refuse to have sex unless a condom is used. By the way, I was 16.5 when the infections happened. GP and OBGYN were concerned because I was a minor. In my country you have medical independence at 16, and I was having repeat, worsening infections. Story 19. I wouldn't say this was the reason, but my husband and I are getting divorced and his lack of regard for my comfort during sex and me never enjoying sex with him is a big reason. His penis size is pretty big and he ignores me when I ask him to slow down, stop during certain positions. He has caused actual pain or tears or really uncomfortable friction. A lot of it would be helped if I was turned on, but just his lack of responsiveness to my requests for comfort combined with the size mismatch is awful. It feels violating, plain and simple. He would act annoyed. Story 20. Guy I went on a couple dates with disclosed to me he had phimosis. No big deal, as my son had the same condition and I felt like, we treated my son's condition, why would this be a problem? He goes on to say that he's always refused treatment and as such, his foreskin wouldn't retract at all. Very unfortunate, but the more I thought about it, the more questions I had. I asked him, "So you've never washed the head of your penis?" And he said very candidly, no, he never had. The actual thought of touching a penis that had never been washed still makes me, fairly nauseous and couldn't imagine allowing that thing near my vagina or mouth. Just nope. Ended things before we got serious because, nope. Story 21. Dated a dude with erectile dysfunction. He was mid-20s, I was 19 and I thought I'd be cool with it. He was very upfront about it before we were official but then completely ignored it after called those lower chakra issues and that he was more focused on our minds. Almost 2 years in and he has no issue getting it up to masturbate, and quickly got soft around me and it gave me a lot of confidence issues. He didn't want to get into toys or even discuss workarounds. Might have been okay if he was open to discussing everything. Story 22. It wasn't really the size of it. It was just the fact that his size made him really insecure. Therefore he didn't trust me because he thought I'd cheat on him with someone with a bigger D. He wasn't even that small. Just below average. I wouldn't have noticed if he hadn't been so obsessed with his penis size. It got so bad that he started checking my phone to make sure I wasn't cheating. Story 23. Not actually because of his penis, but because he decides to tell me, sometimes when I come I shit. You know, right after he jizzed and shit all over my new mattress and acted like it was my fault. Edit, of course this becomes my highest upvoted comment after 7 years on Reddit. Follow up, some of you seem confused about the timeline of this event. He didn't tell me, by the way, when I blow my load I'm gonna pinch a loaf off, he told me after the event. Dude nut and shat then decided it was a good time to warn me about his defect. Second edit, showed this to my husband who already knows the story. He said it wasn't fair of me not to include the best detail of the story. I was blowing this motherfucker when it went down. So I got a mouth full of jizz and a nose full of shit. Story 24. My friend was constantly being broken up with very quickly by almost every woman, or not getting callbacks after hooking up. We finally got a frank answer from one, after he attempted dating one of my wife's bestie. She says, it's really tiny, but not just tiny, it's really skinny too. Then proceeds to show us her pinky finger and said, it's literally the skinny and small. This was later confirmed by another friend, who also used the pinky finger analogy. Ouch. Story 25. So, to sum up most of the comments, men with little dicks get broken up with not because of the size, but because they don't even bother to get their girlfriends/wives off any other way. And guys with big dicks have ego problems who also don't try to get girls off any other way and think that the porn way of just hammering away is enough because they have a huge dick. The takeaway from this for any guys reading, it's not about the size, big or small, just don't be freaking selfish in bed. Story 26. Not because of his penis, but more the fact he had a micro penis, and yet wouldn't perform oral sex on me because I was a week overdue for a wax, and he had a terrible personality in general. Basically he had more dick in his personality than his pants. If you're not willing to do anything to ensure I'm enjoying myself, and you have like nothing in your pants, and you're not enjoyable to hang out with, then I'm out. Story 27. Yes but no. I dated a guy whose penis had a very severe curvature, so much so that it caused pain. I asked for us to try positions that would be less painful for me. He was upset and said my request made him self-conscious. He was well aware of the curvature, and always felt insecure about it, and my request, he said, felt like a personal attack. I apologized, and then asked if we were to use the position he preferred, if he could at least go a lot slower. He initially agreed only to get caught up in the moment and go very hard until I literally yelped and pushed him off me. He then actually cried and asked me why I was being so hurtful. I didn't break up with him because of his penis. I broke up with him because he was selfish and inconsiderate with his penile usage. Story 28. I am one of 4 brothers. The 3 other brothers are hung like horses and it was talked about and recognized in school. I have an average size penis. Whenever I was lucky enough to get with a girl I was met with disappointment, and I don't think they were wanting a big one from a satisfaction standpoint, they were just disappointed because they wanted to see the beer can show. Next thing you know people think I have a small dick. When compared to those 3 hung son of a bitches, yeah. Didn't really care then, don't care now. The obsession with big dicks and huge tits is silly. Story 29. I dated the nicest man who treated me with so much kindness and respect. It was such a fairy tale type of relationship, everything I could have wanted. Still want in a partner. But his dick was too big. I just could not deal with it. Sex was super painful every single time because it was just too big. 8 years later and it's still the biggest dick I've ever seen in my whole life. I still wonder how he's doing, but not because I want his big dick LMFAO.